buddy. Oh my God. Hold on a second. I still have the kid. I say that like I still have the kid, like that's a bad thing. It's not a bad thing. It's actually a good thing. So had to rebuild the studio every day, because he likes to come in this area and play and eat things and wipe things, and he's very messy. So I have to break down the entire studio, and I'm not completely up and running yet. I thought I was. Hold on. We will be in a second. How are you guys today? How's everybody in the chat room? Welcome to the High Noon Rant. My voice is weird, isn't it? Yeah, I think I got COVID. I don't know, or whatever the new thing is, whatever it is that's going on. I'm all congested. My kid has been congested since coming back. My kid got sick on Christmas Eve, and he had a fever and he ruined Christmas. We've all been there. We've all had at least one Christmas, spent in bed with a thermometer in our mouth. So that's how he spent Christmas. So big suck. But then he got better. Fever went away. Everything. He's got that robust, strong, young system. But he's been battling this head cold ever since. So when I got him like last week sometime, and he came over here to start hanging with me for New Year's, he's had a head cold the whole time, coughing and, no temperature and, energy's good. He wants to do things and all that. So not sick, but just stuffed up. Well, after about 4 days of that nonsense, now I'm feeling like I'm getting something. So bear with me. I'm going to speak in a little bit different tone. All right, we're ready. Let's get started. It is the High Noon Rant. I am Pugs Moran. We do this every Monday through Friday at 12 p.m. It is a stream of consciousness. It's just me speaking unfiltered on all the day's hot topics, current events, headlines, trends, buzzworthy topics, whatever it is people are talking about. I compile them into a list, and then we go through them. We execute the show in 4 quarters, much like a football game, except every quarter is a little bit different. The first quarter is a segment that we begin with called Erstwhile on This Day. What we do with Erstwhile on This Day is we go through the significant events of this day in history, and I riff on them a little bit. Remember, this is a stream of consciousness, so, I might not know much about it, but I'm going to try and talk. So there we go. That's the fun or the horror, depending on your perspective. Second quarter is birthdays. We do a thing called Hey, it's their birthday, or so they claim. These are people, significant people who I've cherry-picked throughout history who were born on this day. And yeah, again, it's just a situation where, can I rant on this person for a few seconds? Sure. And that's what that is. Third quarter, the deads. Now this, I get a little excited. I like this because this puts us in the driver's seat, or more to the point, me, but you folks in the chat room, I like it if you play along. The deads are when we take people who have died on this day, we open up their resume, their life's accomplishments, and we decide based upon our own understanding of heaven and hell, where'd they go? This person died on this day. Did they go to heaven or did they go to hell? We stand in judgment of our fellow man. Our fellow men and women of accomplishment, we stand. Although, if I'm being honest, we don't do many women. What is that about? How come we haven't? It's almost always men. Have you noticed that? All right, I got to pay attention to that. Is it just men who die? Wait, women die too, right? Okay, moving on. Those are the first 3 quarters. Erstwhile on this day. Hey, it's their birthday. And where'd they go? Heaven or hell? That's quarter 1, quarter 2, quarter 3. Then we go into quarter 4. This is the main part of the show. These are the hot topics, current events, trends, headlines, all of that stuff. We do the first 3 quarters first because I believe that in order to truly understand what this day is, we have to have some sort of familiarity with what this day has represented in previous episodes. Get it? Got it? Good. Okay. What else needs to be mentioned? Yeah, let's do this. Let's award today's executive producer of the show. Here's how we do. This show runs on your tips. We haven't been doing real well the last couple of months. For 2.5 years, we nailed it every month. We went over, and it's like it was always at the wire, but that's okay. We haven't done that in 2 months. We've been sort of lagging behind. This month we started the show yesterday. I said it was like $300. Truthfully, it was like $312 or $15 or something because my boy Frank Smith, who is just wonderful, he always screws up the round numbers, but I appreciate him. Frank drops like $3. Frank will drop like $2. So it got the actual number wasn't a nice round number that we needed, but whatever. I said 300. That's great. Now we are down to 245. Why? Because we have tag team executive producers. And this is the craziest tag team of executive producers that you could ever want to find anywhere. And let me tell you something, all seriousness. I'm not going to be smarmy here. I'm not trying to be crazy. We don't, not many people tip this show. The people who do tip regularly, and they've kept us afloat. And I'm so appreciative to you folks. Adam and Byron are in the chat room every single day. Now, I talk about what I want this show to be. What I want this show to be is something for everybody. What I want this show to be is a place where people who see the world in one way can come and spend a little bit of time with people who see the world in another way. And maybe throughout that, they can mix with some people who are kind of like me, who see it all the different ways, who kind of understand that, like, yeah, I get what these people are saying. I get what these people are saying. Adam and Byron have nothing in common, except for the fact that they are here for this show every day. And again, I'm not trying to get, I appreciate it. It is so that, I mean, that to me, regardless of what happens with the future of this show, the idea that a guy like Byron could be here every day and seemingly enjoy the show. I don't want to put any words in anybody's mouth, but seemingly enjoy the show. And then have a guy like Adam, who for the very same reasons can find something of interest in this show. So, as we move into 2024 and we don't know what the future exactly is going to be, I'm going to continue doing, streaming content of some kind, that's for sure. But whether or not this remains an economic viability, I don't know. We don't know. It's not looking like it is. With that said, holy shit, this cannot be for me, and that's all that matters. This is an exercise in narcissism. For me, when this is all done 10 years from now, when they say, hey, you remember when you did that thing for a couple of years? I'll be like, yeah. And it'll make me happy because that's really all I wanted. And are they representative of others? I hope so. Like, I hope that for every Byron, there's another like 10 or 15 people. Same thing goes for Adam. I just appreciate it so much. So thank you, you guys. You tied. So I appreciate it. Who's going to be tomorrow's executive producer? We will find out. That's how you do it. If you're so moved or inclined and you want to drop a little something, like I said, we need 2:45 by end of show Friday. I don't expect that we can get there. I don't. That's asking too much, but we can get close, and I appreciate that. So thank you so much. All right, what do you say we get started with today's show? Today's show, as I said, we do it in 4 quarters. First quarter is erstwhile, but we get to that after we tell you that it is January the 3rd. Third day of January. There are 362 days remaining until the end of the year. It says 363 in leap year. I still have not done the due diligence to determine whether or not this is an actual leap year. I don't really care that much. Gives me something to talk about here. How many days until? Yeah, that's it. 362 left. All right, or 363. All right, let's get started. Let's do erstwhile on this day. What do you say, folks? This is where we take a look back at all of the things that have helped shape our understanding of January the 3rd throughout time. Let's just run through a couple of them. Earthquakes are in the news. Japan there was an earthquake, and not a big one. One of them earthquake countries had one this morning, and I'm like, Jesus, what? That's earthquakes, man. Earthquakes are happening. On this day in 1911. Now, earthquakes of significance. The earthquake in Japan was a fairly significant earthquake. So what is an earthquake of significance? I don't know. Something like over 5, right? Because don't we have like little tiny ones that are like 2s and stuff like that? And people are like, oh, the ground shook. Did you feel it? And it's like, nope. So these are earthquakes of significance. On this day in 1911, a magnitude 7.7 earthquake destroys the city of Almaty in Russia, Turkestan. That's one of them earthquake countries. Then again, on this day in 1920, over 640 people are killed after a magnitude 6.4 earthquake strikes the Mexican states Puebla and Veracruz. So on this day, this is earthquake season. Apparently, seems like a lot. There were a couple of earthquakes also yesterday in the history, but I didn't mention them because I was like, oh, that's weird. But it wasn't enough of a pattern for me to go, but wow. Yeah, it's earthquake season. Buckle up, Buttercup. On this day, erstwhile in 1947, the very first proceedings of the United States Congress are broadcast on public television. It's the first time people collectively came together and ignored what was on their TV screens because nobody ever watched that. I'm sorry. Maybe the first day it was interesting. But what is the viewership of C-SPAN? Oh, my God. Could you imagine that? Like a C-SPAN viewer convention? Oh, my holy cow. That should be the next Chris Guest mockumentary that he does. He should create like a those people who watch C-SPAN are weird. The callers are all weird, but man, to be that into it. And look, I'm not saying that it's not admirable to be involved in your, local government. I think we spent the better part of my lifetime, about 40 years of my life, having people go, it's time to get involved. You got to get involved. You can't just sling arrows at the elected officials. You got to get yourself involved, run for school board. And we did this over and over again. And guess what happened? People got involved. Guess what? Wasn't really great for us. Has not been the Garden of Eden we projected back in the 80s when we started encouraging people to get involved in their local governments. Now, turns out a lot of us shouldn't be in local government. Not good at it. Do not possess the requisite skill set. On this day in 1959, Alaska is admitted as the 49th United States. Welcome to the party, Alaska. You just sit there and be beautiful. That's all we want from Alaska. Be beautiful. Just sit there and be beautiful. And money and oil, right? We want oil. I think that we can have both. Does all of Alaska have to be beautiful? Like, do you know how big Alaska is? Does it all have to be beautiful? I mean, everybody's not going to go everywhere in Alaska. Can't we drill in Alaska? Can't we? I mean, I just think that oil, look, I'm all for, green. I like electric cars. I think they're cool. I hope to have an electric car one day once they become affordable to the normal person and not just everybody in this highly conservative billionaire neighborhood that I live in. The rich people, all the rich people have electric cars. And these are people with, this is the George Bush, this is hardcore Texas red billionaire. My God, and they all have electric cars. So electric cars are coming. So don't get it like, oh, he wants to drill it. I just think that electric cars aren't coming tomorrow. As soon as you can get me, like, you start mass producing like a $15,000 electric car. If you mass produce a $15,000 brand new electric car, everybody will have one. Everybody's kid will have one. Everybody will use them as commute. Everybody will have them. And only then will there be any significant movement away from fossil fuels. Only then might I go, all right, we don't need to drill in Alaska, but we ain't there. And we need oil because I'm tired of paying $3 a gallon for gasoline because some sheik in the desert is shaking me down again. I hate that. I'm not drill, baby, drill. Don't get me wrong. I don't know. I don't like the people who say that. They're weird. But I think a conversation needs to be had. Alaska, welcome to the party. On this day in 1959. On this day in 1977, Apple Computers is incorporated as a company. Apple Computers on this day. Here's a fun little Apple computer story. So I tell you, I'm watching that show on Apple TV, For All Mankind. It's an alternative history that proposes, what if the Russians had landed on the moon first? What would the butterfly effect throughout history have been? It's in season 4, but I restarted watching it. So I'm in season 3. So right now it is 1992 in the setting of For All Mankind. It's 1992 and NASA and the world in general does not look like what 1992 actually was. I was there. I know what it was. I know what 1992 was. I was there. So there's a lot of like fun things because we didn't land on the moon first. We were motivated to then decide, well, the real winner of the race isn't who gets there first. It's who colonizes first. So instead of NASA just kind of, after we won the space race, we kind of packed it up. We were like, all right, we did it. And we appreciated ourselves. We didn't push forward. The hypothesis of this show is that what if we were forced to push forward? What kind of leaps in technology would we have stumbled across had we been really pushing? And one of those things is like computers and stuff, like the late 70s, people had home computers in the universe of this show. But one of the cool things is that 1992, everybody's FaceTiming. Hell, everybody ain't FaceTiming in 2024. Yet in 1992, in this show, people in the smartphones. Oh, smartphones are on. People have smartphones. It's 1992. They have smartphones. They've had them for years. And Apple is the big company that's putting them out, just like they did. Only in this case, Apple did it 30 years earlier than they did it before, or in reality. So there was a scene last night that really focused on the Apple iPhone of 1992, and it's funny looking. I mean, it certainly doesn't look like the smartphones of today. It's a little bigger, a little bulkier. But what I thought was really interesting was there was an Apple logo on the smartphone. There was, and it was the old Apple logo, and it just looks so weird. It was the Apple logo from this day in 1977. Apple incorporated as a company. I highly recommend For All Mankind. It's so cool. There's so many little like Easter eggs. Like there's so many little things that are like, what do you mean he didn't become president? Like, there's like, wait a second, Senator Jimmy Carter. Why is he a senator? Because we didn't land on the moon first. And that changed a whole bunch of stuff. And one of the small things that changed was Jimmy Carter wasn't compelled to run for president in 1976. Ronald Reagan did. Ronald Reagan came earlier. Ronald Reagan became president in 76. Clinton lost in 92, by the way, to Ellen Wilson, who is a fabricated character for the show. Ellen Wilson's one of the first female astronauts. I think first woman on the moon in this universe, and she would go on to be president. Back to erstwhile on this day. Erstwhile on this day in 1990, the United States invasion of Panama occurs. Manuel Noriega, former leader of the Panama government, surrenders to American forces. Do you remember this? This was a holdout, a standoff, whatever. Holdout. Stand in, whatever. It was a standoff. Noriega had barricaded himself in the presidential compound down there in Panama in the United States military, while the government, the Department of Justice, decided he was a drug dealer. And he probably was. He probably was. But I just want to see a list of, hey, we're all waiting on lists these days. I want to see a list of the people who were complicit with Noriega. I want to see all the redacted United States intelligence officials whose names are no longer associated with Noriega, but they were integral in building his power base and allowing him means of distribution for his cocaine network. Now, we'll never see that list. But this was the day that we decided to break bad on our old business partner, and we went down to Panama, and we surrounded his presidential palace, and we arrested him. Now, one of the ways that it would stand, I don't remember how long it was, but you remember they were playing bad music? Like they just brought down all of these like concert venue quality speakers and surrounded the presidential palace. And they were playing like, I want to see the playlist, because I think a lot of the music that they were playing was music that was being derided at the time, but history has, like, I think they were playing like some NWA and stuff. But the reason they were playing it was because we're going to play music that's so awful, he's going to totally give up. When now it's like, really? What were they playing? Straight Outta Compton? Because that album is timeless. That's a great album. You want him? He's going to sit down, roll up a joint, and just enjoy the music if you're playing that. I think he also played some Vanilla Ice and stuff like that. That was on this day in 1990. Noriega finally gave up. He's like, no more Wayne Newton. On this day in 2009, erstwhile, the first block of the blockchain of the decentralized payment system known as Bitcoin called... If you're into the Bitcoin stuff, this is a significant day for you, because some dude by the name of, I'm going to throw his name out, Satoshi Nakamoto started this, I guess. I don't know. Moving on. I don't care. I hope 2024. I hope that's one of those things. Bitcoin bros. I don't know. Am I being an old man? Is this something I should be like, there's money? Or is this just like, fooling his money? I don't know. It's blockchain Bitcoin. On this day, erstwhile, on this day in 2020, Iranian General Qasem Soleimani is killed by an American airstrike near the Baghdad International Airport, igniting global concerns of a potential armed conflict. He was like a superhero in Iran, this Soleimani guy. They love him. He's like their, I don't know what, General Grant, or maybe even not at George Washington, but anyway, he got killed. We killed him because he was a D-bag, and they made him into a martyr, as always happens. And we'll get to more on him on today's show because he is in the news today. All right, let's do some birthdays. Want 'em. They say it's their birthday. This is what we call quarter two. We go through a list of people who celebrated a birthday today. Talk about whether or not we think they're cool or not. Jim Ross, happy birthday, born on this day in 1952. Now, isn't this weird? Because yesterday we talked about the birthday of Mean Gene Okerlund. Now, if there is a second biggest voice in WWF history, or WWE history, however you want, it's going to be Jim Ross. Jim Ross, I got to interview. He used to come through with all the big wrestling shows. And so Jim Ross came in and done the old Pugs and Kelly show a number of times. Gentleman. That's how I would describe Jim Ross, a gentleman. I was not all that into wrestling, so I was not as impressed by this guy, Jim Ross, as everybody else was, and everybody else was. We had Jim Ross and Mick Foley. Sitting in studio with us for about 2 hours one day, and I'm telling you, everybody wanted pictures with Jim Ross. Jim Ross, born on this day in 1952. He cool. Born on this day in 1956, Mel Gibson, American-Australian actor, director, producer, and screenwriter. I don't know if he's still cool because, a lot of people are like, oh, he's that. I don't keep up with Mel Gibson. I don't know what his deal is, but he's Mad Max. So to me, he's cool. Whatever. I'm supposed to, I don't know. I don't care. He's Mel Gibson, man. Lethal Weapon. He's the Lethal Weapon guy. He's awesome. He's Braveheart. He's cool. All right, there you go. Born on this day in 1975, here's a girl that many, many of us in the Gen X community had a crush on, possibly even some of you older millennials. Can we wish a happy birthday to genius Danica McKellar? Danica McKellar. Who's she? Winnie Cooper. Winnie Cooper from Wonder Years. Remember how cute she was? Jesus. I was probably like 20 when that show came out. I was probably like 20 years old when that show came out. And like the minute Kevin Arnold laid eyes on Winnie Cooper in class, and he had that, oh my God, I love her. It wasn't sexual, right? I mean, because she was probably 15. But I think that was such an incredible scene in such a fascinating and relatable relationship, right? I think that's what it was about. It's not, so don't get weird. Don't turn in one of those cute people. Well, it's weird that you liked Winnie Cooper when you were 20. It's not that I liked her. It's like, I think that she represented everyone's first crush. And now she's a fully grown adult, and she's super smart, and she's very cute. So there you go. Danica McKellar. Born on this day in 1975, Winnie Cooper. Born on this day in 1981, Eli Manning. Eli Manning, the lesser of the Mannings. Well, I don't know. I think Cooper might have a slot in that race. Eli Manning. I love Eli Manning. I have a fun. Okay, so here's an Eli Manning story about a Giants fan. I have a buddy who's a diehard Giants fan. And this is sort of the lot that Eli has had his entire life. My Giants fan friend hated Eli Manning. Hated him. I hate this guy. We only drafted him because of his last name. He can't even play. I mean, this was him for what was Eli in the league? 12, 13, 14 years. For 12, 13, 14 years. I ran into him last year at it was some football kickoff thing. I don't know, it was just like some social thing. He was there. He's here. He's a Dallas guy who works in Dallas media. And he was wearing like a really badass red, white, and blue Giants Eli Manning jersey. And I go, dude, you hate Eli Manning. And he looked at me and he goes, yeah, I was wrong. What do you want from me? I was a dumb fan in the moment. I was wrong. I am still a New York Giants fan, and I would kill for the days of Eli Manning. So that's kind of how I feel about Eli Manning. He's never really been, he was never really, I mean, he was always a good quarterback in the rankings, whatever. But he was always sort of like, people look down their nose at Eli Manning, like, well, we could do better. And I just think that's so unfair. Dude's got 2 Super Bowls in New York City. You can't take that away from him. And I like Eli. I don't like Peyton so much. I think Peyton's kind of I think Peyton would be very impressed to meet Peyton. You know what I mean? I think it's that kind of a thing. Whereas Eli seems like he's been dealing with Peyton his whole life. So Eli's a little bit more self-actualized, maybe, which would make him a decent person, a better person, a more compatible person with me. Let's see here. Moving on. Born on this day in 1996, Florence Pugh. Pugh. I know it's Pugh. Florence Pugh. She's like a hot young actress. And by hot, I mean like, Hollywood. She's A-list like Hollywood. I can't even picture her, honestly. I don't know who she is. All I know is that like there's people who really like Frances Pugh. The H, I think the H is silent. Frances Pugh. That's how you got to pronounce it. She was born on this. Now I got to see what she looks like. I got to see who she is. Who is she? What was she in? All right, hold on. Frances Pugh. All right, let's see. Oh, she's darling. Well, what did I expect? 23-year-old Kathy Bates. I mean, of course, she's a young actress. There are no hideous young actresses. Yeah, I don't know what I've seen her in, but I guess she's familiar. She's cute. Okay, she's a cute young actress. Good for her. Happy birthday, Florence Pugh. Born on this day in 1936. Now, did you know this next one's kind of mind blowing? This next one makes me go, all right, let's hear these QAnon people out. Let's not just completely dismiss the QAnon people. I'm kidding. Wink, wink. Of course, we're going to completely dismiss them, but there are weird things that occur in this world that you have to go, huh? That's a coincidence. So we are in an incredibly divided time, as I occasionally mention here on the show. This show does not seek to divide. Celebrating birthdays on this day are two people who are super like synonymous with one extreme wing of political ideology in 2023. They're both young people. They're both like, these are the young people that will carry the torch. They're polar opposites. One's a boy, one's a girl. They have nothing in common. The people who root for these individuals have nothing in common with each other. And yet they were born on the exact same day in the exact same year. Happy birthday to the amazing couple. Let's get these two kids together. Kyle Rittenhouse and Greta Thunberg. The Thunberg Rittenhouse wedding party. Seriously, is this how we save the world? What Greta Thunberg, is she even, because, okay, here's what I think. Looking at Kyle, okay, let's strip away all the nonsense. Kyle Rittenhouse and Greta Thunberg. They're at some small Midwestern college together. They meet in a humanities class. I guess Rittenhouse wouldn't take a humanities class. All right, they meet at a party. Let's just put it that way. They meet at a party. Young 19-year-old, what are they now? I don't know how old they are. Whatever they are. They meet in college. These two kids, they're not Greta Thunberg. They're not Kyle Rittenhouse. They're just two people with those names who aren't famous for any reason. They're just kids. And they meet and they hook up. Is that a believable pairing? Like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. Like is Kyle Rittenhouse is kind of like a doughy, soft, plays video games and gets picked on kind of kid, right? Although, have you seen him cleaned up in a suit with a hair and the Hollywood treatment? He's not hideous. He's hideous for like Crystal Lake, Illinois, which is where he's from, which is very like, but he cleans up and he looks like a boy next door. He looks good. Greta Thunberg, I don't know if she's attractive. I've always kind of seen her as a kid, right? So are they, I guess what I'm saying is, could they date? Are they in each other's league? Looks wise, they're both awkward. They are both like socially awkward. So maybe that would be something that they would bond over. Anyway, moving on. I don't think that's a coincidence. On this day in 2003, the divisiveness wing of the Hollywood clone factory cranked out a couple of kids that they then set out into the world to divide us even further for generations to come. Humanity, our lizard overlords, are busy at work controlling our every movement. And thought. There you go. That's going to do it. All right, let's talk about some people who died on this day. These are the people who died. These are the people who died. That's right. Heaven or hell, we get to decide whether or not these folks go to heaven or go to hell. Oh, my God. All right, I'm just looking at the list I put together. I remember this being a particularly dark list. Let me just say there's going to be a line checking IDs into hell. Dead on this day in 1903. And I had to do some work on this one. I had to really think this one through. We're going to preemptively put him into hell. Okay? Dead on this day in 1903. Alois Hitler. That's right. The father of Adolf Hitler died on this day in 1903. Now, why do we preemptively put him into hell? Now, I know what you think. Well, obviously you put him in. No. But, we have to be contemplative over these issues because we're talking about a human soul that we're either going to damn to hell or glorify in his grace. So we got to be thoughtful. And I thought, my first thought was, well, he died in 1903. When was Hitler born? Well, how much influence did he have on Hitler? Because, Hitler's dad should definitely go to hell because there's probably some bad life lessons Hitler learned when, his teen years kind of puts. All I'm saying is I don't think you just become Hitler overnight. I think that there's some influence. So the dad is complicit from the get-go until we look at dad died in 1903. And I'm like, well, if Hitler was born in like 1900, then we can't just outright ban him to hell. As a matter of fact, we can now start considering putting him in heaven for what he must have gone through in the afterlife, looking down at what his evil hell spawn has created. But here's the thing. Hitler was 14 when his dad died. That's it. That is 14. Dad was around long enough to set some cornerstones in old Adolf. So because of that, Alois Hitler, father of Adolf Hitler, goes to hell. Dead on this day in 1945, Edgar Cayce. Edgar Cayce. So who was Edgar Cayce? Edgar Cayce was a psychic and an author. He's really the guy that popularized the notion of paranormal investigation. And there is I think it's in Virginia Beach, there is an Edgar Cayce Museum of the Paranormal where this guy did a whole lot of, seances and mediums, and, you could talk to the dead and, he could know your thought, crystal balls, all of that stuff. He sort of popularized it. He sort of took it out of the gypsy immigrant folklore dimension and gave it a little bit of a colonial propriety, really. He was the psychic you'd go to and he'd wear a suit, like that whole thing. He was also a major con man. So he's in hell. He is absolutely in hell. Although I'm sure the stuff he talked about was fun and he became very famous because people were like, ooh, could that be real? Because people want to believe. And if people want to believe and you have a way you can make that's all I'm saying. And that's what he did. So he's in hell. He's a con man. He did all kinds, like now through the lens of history, you look back and you go, oh, he did all kinds of really shady stuff that now we understand was so obviously fake. But anyway, he cashed checks and made money, and we're talking about him now. Edgar Cayce, dead on this day in 1945, American psychic. He's in hell. Dead on this day in 1967, Jack Ruby. Just put Jack Ruby in hell. This son of a bitch. We wanted answers. Jack Ruby murdered Lee Harvey Oswald as Lee Harvey was being perp walked at the Dallas courthouse. Just tied in with the mob, died of cancer on this day in 67. You go straight to hell, Jack Ruby. You go straight to hell. All right, on this day in 2019, the world lost a guy who wrote a book that I read. That's about all I could say about him. Herb Kelleher. Who was Herb Kelleher? Herb Kelleher wrote a book in the 1990s called Nuts. Herb Kelleher. He's the dude that built Southwest Airlines. And I like Southwest Airlines. And I like Southwest Airlines because I like Herb Kelleher. It's spelled weird. There's two L's and E. Her. I don't know how you pronounce Kelleher. It's not a good name. It's not a good last name to say. So where are we putting him? He was like a rich aviation billionaire guy, but I really liked the book and I really enjoyed my travels on Southwest Airlines back in the Herb Kelleher days. So we're gonna go heaven. We're gonna put him in heaven. As a matter of fact, last night I took Herb Kelleher drive right into Love Field. I had to pick up some friends at Love Field. And, I living adjacent to Love Field. Hey, could you pick me up? You're right there. Yeah. Okay, I'm right here, but you're not. Where am I taking you? I mean, what am I, Uber? Nah, I kid. I picked up E. I made it sound like I was picking up some random guy. I just picked up E. He lives in the neighborhood. It was very easy. It was very easy. I was thinking about that yesterday when I was going to the airport. I'm like, man, nobody likes going to the airport, but this is actually pretty easy. This is like Love Field is 2 blocks away. I just pull out of my neighborhood, make a right on Lemon, make a left on Cedar Springs, and make a right on Herb Kelleher Drive. And I'm right there. That pulls me right into Love Field. Love Field was crazy, skanky busy last night. All right, moving on. That's it. Those are going to be the deads, ladies and gentlemen. We have completed quarter 1, quarter 2, quarter 3, and quarter 4. And now it is time to once again remind you of today's executive producers. It is the Kusum Twosome, 2 guys who couldn't be any more different, yet they produce some of the finest streaming content. Adam and Byron, thank you, boys. Appreciate it. Adam and Byron earned today's identical tips. They brought us down to our number is $245 now for the week. We need to raise $245 in the next 3 shows, which would certainly be outkicking our coverage, but I do appreciate the attempt. So if you are so inclined, there you go. You can support the show that way. All right, now let's move into the stuff that is shaping our day today. What do you say? All the events, the trends, the headline, huh? Let me take a breath. We still doing this? 2024. Hold on, I gotta move this up. I told you I had a couple of things that I wasn't prepared. I wasn't prepared to start the show on time because I had to break the studio down. But here we go. Okay. Starting off with Israel. There's still a war going on in Israel. Israel and Hamas. Gaza, Israel's just carpet bombing them. There are problems now in other parts. Southern Syria and southern Lebanon are now creating a problem. The Houthis, who have taken up arms in defense of the people of Gaza, are creating havoc in the Red Sea. We've got military presence there, and all of this is becoming normalized. I don't even look up a new story. What I do is I put Israel in, and then I scan the headlines, and I regurgitate them to you here. If you need moment by moment breaking information about what's happening in Israel, or in Gaza for that matter, there are better places to go. Netanyahu's in a bad situation because Netanyahu wants to be the strong man and he wants to keep going, and everybody's like, dude, seriously? There's nothing left. Also, rumors out there today that one of the top Hamas commanders has been killed. He's going to turn up again in a couple of days, and then we'll kill him again, and it'll make another headline. Wow, we sure are killing. We kill the same guy over and over and over again. You ever notice that? We do that because they make the big announcements. Breaking news. We killed one of their guys, Abu Babi Bakr. We killed him. He's dead. He's gone. This is going to severely disrupt their terror network. And then like 3 months later, guys, we killed Abu Babi Bakr. We got him. Remember, we thought we got him, but we didn't. They never tell us. They never tell us to follow up. Like a week after the initial, yeah, we got him. They never tell us, hey, we were wrong. We didn't get him. No, they just announced that we got him again in 6 months. Oh, cool. Okay. So there you go. That's Israel. Iran. Now, we mentioned this because on this day in 2020, this Iranian general, remember I said he's like a big dude over there. They love him. He died. He was killed by American Special Forces at Baghdad Airport on this day in 2020. He was a bad guy. He was in charge of all kinds of bad guy stuff. Again, you need more information on this. There are plenty of places you can go. I'm just going to give you the Cliff's Notes. In case anybody goes, hey, did you hear what happened in Iran? You can go, yeah. A guy who was a very popular general who the Americans killed in 2020 was being mourned today on the 4-year anniversary of his death when a whole new kind of terror event took place. Iran says that at least 103 people have been killed in blasts at a ceremony honoring slain general. So this is the 4-year anniversary of this guy being killed. Apparently he was really killed because 4-year anniversary and whatnot. And every year they get together. Every year those crazies, every year the bad faction of the Iranian people get together. They take to the streets and they go, this guy was awesome. Dubai is the dateline. 2 bombs exploded and killed at least 103 people Wednesday at a commemoration for a prominent Iranian general slain by the United States in a 2020 drone strike. No one immediately claimed responsibility for what appeared to be the deadliest militant attack to target Iran since its 1979 Islamic Revolution. Iran's leaders vowed to punish those responsible for the blast, which wounded at least 211 more. 103 people, 211 others injured. The blast, minutes apart, shook the city of Kerman, about 510 miles, 820 kilometers, southeast of Tehran, and sprayed shrapnel into a screaming crowd fleeing the first explosion. So they did that thing where they make a bomb go off, and then everybody gets hurt by the bomb going off, and then the rescuers all rush in to help the people who are hurt by the first bomb, and that's when the second bomb goes off. Yeah, that's the kind of people. That's the kind of people terrorists are. Moving forward, speaking of terrorism of the domestic variety, which we don't know if it is or if it isn't. But did you hear about this incident that occurred outside an arena in Rochester, New York on New Year's Eve? I didn't mention it yesterday because, well, quite frankly, I forgot to cover it. So I apologize. But I'm mentioning it today because there's more information. So here's what happened. So there was a concert going on at the Kodak Arena in Rochester, New York, which is in upstate New York, just outside of Buffalo. It's a fairly significant part of New York. It's built up. It's a city. It's not rural. Rochester is a university there. So the Kodak Center is hosting a concert, a New Year's Eve concert by the Grateful Dead jam band type group called Mo. M-O-E. Don't know who Mo is, but they're being described as a Grateful Dead jam band tribute New Year's Eve show, whatever. Okay. So these people, a bunch of hippies and stuff, they're all inside there. And when the concert gets out, they all flood the streets as they normally do. And at this point, some dude in a car, a rented car that was filled with gasoline canisters. He took a rented car and then he got like a couple dozen canisters of gasoline and he filled them up and he stuck them in the car, the trunk, the back seat, the front seat, everywhere. Car was a rolling time bomb. So this concert gets out and people are everywhere. They're in the streets. They're all walking around. They're doing their things. You know how it is after concerts. And two people get into a lift, a ride share. They get into a lift, a Mitsubishi SUV lift. They get in. They just had a great time. It's New Year's Eve. Let's go party. The concert was great. They get in the lift. As the lift is pulling out of the parking lot, this dude in the rented car filled with gasoline floors it and head on runs straight into the lift, the Mitsubishi lift. Those people are dead. That's boom. Big giant explosion. Those people are dead. So now we got the investigation into this dude. What did he do that for? A bunch of other people injured. I'll get to the details in a second. I just want to give you the cliff notes. So in the 24 hours following it, the FBI out of Buffalo's New York office, they issued a domestic terror proclamation. This is domestic terror. And this was based on reports that this dude wasn't from the area, had rented the car. They found the gasoline. He was staying in a hotel. There was a suicide note and a manifesto left at the hotel. So the FBI said this is a case of domestic terror. That was 24 hours ago. Here we are now. They're saying, hold on. Apparently there wasn't a note left at the hotel room. Apparently they're now not calling it domestic terrorism. So I don't know what happened there. Everybody ran with the story that the FBI said that there was a note in the hotel room, and now we're learning that is not the case. All right, let's get into some of these details as we try and figure this out, because this is a fascinating story. This is a crazy man. He's a crazy man. He's a crazy dude. Went nuts. Decided he wanted to kill a bunch of people. That's terrorism. Okay, that is a domestic. It's an American citizen. It's an American citizen. Wow, it's an American citizen who, forget about the reason. Well, that's an important part of terrorism. Nah, I think that we've got too tight a definition of terrorism. I think anybody that decides that they're going to go create mayhem and terrorize people, I think that person is a terrorist. Stop making the only form of terrorism that we're allowed to talk about the Arab kind. All right? Stop it. There is domestic terrorism. Look at Nazis. Please present a case of Antifa for me, okay? You can probably do that as well. They burn down car dealerships. Antifa burns down a car dealership. Absolutely. That is domestic terrorism. It's all forms of it. It's all forms of it. But just because I'm very concerned how this was kind of cut and dry. We found the note. The car was, what is not being debated is that this dude loaded up a rented car with a whole bunch of canisters of gasoline. We know that. How is that not terrorism? How is that not, I'm going to scare the fuck out of some people? Come on. Oh, because if you call it terrorism, then it's going to be like, well, who did he vote for? Oh, shut up. Terrorism, crazy people commit terrorism. So the motivations for said terrorism is also something fucking crazy. Doesn't always have to make sense. You know, I mean, well, 9/11 made sense because they told us that this was because of years of American and Western occupation of the Holy Land or whatever. But you know what I mean? There was a reason. It doesn't have to be a reason. You tell me a guy walks into a mall and kills people because the lizard overlords directed him via telepathy to do it. That's the reason he's doing it. Yeah, it's fucking crazy, but he's still a terrorist. He's still terrorized people. Federal investigators say they've identified no connection to terrorism in deadly Rochester crash. That's the headline. Now, does that mean that just no connection to like Islamic terrorism? Because isn't that what we think of when, oh my God, there was an incident. We think it's terror related. We immediately go, oh, foreign country is here for political reasons enacting terror in our society for their own political goals. Well, okay, I get that. But that's not the only kind of terrorism. It's not the only way that we get terrorized here in this country. Yes, that is one. Those damn crazy fundamental radicalists, you know, whatever, blowing up airplanes and killing people and stabbing people in malls, whatever. Yeah, that's terrorism. But so is a crazy dude who decides to load up a rented car filled with gasoline and drive it into a jam band concert. Authorities found no evidence of a connection to domestic terrorism. Are they using this term because in their mind's eye, in their definition of domestic terrorism, it has to be linked to some known group that, you know, does like obstacle courses in Utah? Is that it? Because that's not, to me, all that genuine. I think the terrorism could be anything. I want to go terrorize people. Authorities found no evidence of a connection to domestic terrorism in a deadly car crash outside a New Year's Eve concert in Rochester, New York, which killed 2 people and injured 9. By the way, the only people who died, they were the 2 hippies in the back of the lift. Oh, those poor people. And they showed pictures of them. They look exactly like what you'd imagine. They're just like, you know, mid-40s. You know, they don't have a gym membership, but they're wearing tie-dye and they got flowers in their hair. Yeah, hippies, that whole thing. It's a look. It's a look at the lifestyle. They certainly didn't deserve this. The suspect, whom officials identified as 35-year-old Michael Avery from Syracuse, died. Oh, good. Officials by Tuesday morning had found no evidence that Avery acted on political or social biases. See, again, that's fine. He could have acted because his dog told him to. I don't, you know, why he is creating a terror environment is not really all that important to me. It's only important if, like, you want to blame a specific group for this incident. That's why you got to put a label on it so you can blame them people. You can keep a look on them people for doing this again. I don't know. How about just crazy fucks? How about just we keep an eye on crazy fucks? Is that something we can do? Because this guy was apparently wildly schizophrenic. The suspect, whom officials identified as 35-year-old Michael Avery, officials by Tuesday morning had found no evidence that Avery acted on political or social biases in the incident, in which 2 vehicles, one laden with gas canisters, crashed before plowing into the crowd outside the concert. Let's see. Yeah. So far, we've uncovered no evidence of an ideology and no nexus of terrorism, either international or domestic, FBI agent Jeremy Bell said at a news concert Tuesday. Okay, that's fair. That's fair. He's not connected to any other group. This isn't a conspiracy, you know, connecting a larger outside organization. This was not something that a whole bunch of people planned and plotted, and there's no money trail. This is just a crazy person who decided to act alone as a terrorist for whatever crazy reason he had in his head. Still terrorism. This is terrorism to me. The FBI defines domestic terror. Here we go. This is why. The FBI defines domestic terrorism as involving acts dangerous to human life, check, that are a violation of U.S. or state laws, check, appearing to be intended to intimidate or coerce civilians, influence the policy of government by intimidating or coercion, or affect the conduct of government by mass destruction, assassination, or kidnapping. All right, well, what this guy did was it was a dangerous act that caused danger to human life. Okay, he violated state laws, I'm sure, although who knows. It's totally legal to drive around with, 50 gas canisters of leaky gas and then ram into a... It's totally legal. Okay, so we know he violated that law because he seems to have intentionally driven into another car. It says here, appearing to be intended to intimidate or coerce civilians. Well, yeah, driving straight at a crowd of civilians is certainly intending to coerce them. They're to run, for one thing. So there you go. Check on that. Or affect the conduct of government by mass destruction. Well, the conduct of government. Well, they're going to have to put now these barriers, right? City council's going to have to get together. They're going to spend some money. They're going to have to put these barriers now to stop some dude from driving into a jam band. There you go. Let's see here. Mass destruction, assassination, or kidnapping. Well, it was mass destruction. Look, they checked all the boxes here. I guess it doesn't fit the way you want them to, but certainly this dude checks all the boxes that they've outlined here for domestic terrorism. There is no specific, the FBI is not saying that there has to be a specific link to another organization, which is what I thought would be needed to have a true terrorist conspiracy, but okay. Revelers were walking on a crosswalk outside the venue after midnight Monday when Avery, driving a rented Ford SUV, slammed into a rideshare Mitsubishi that was leaving a parking lot with two passengers. The force of the crash sent the vehicles through a group of pedestrians on the crosswalk. The two passengers in the Mitsubishi were instantly killed, and the driver was taken to a hospital with non-life-threatening injuries. Look at that. Don't ride share a Mitsubishi, I guess. And Mitsubishi passengers die, driver walks away safe. The two victims in the Mitsubishi were identified by police on Tuesday as Justina Hughes, 28, of Geneva, and Joshua Orr, 29, of Webster, New York. Well, that just tells you what the hippie lifestyle does to you, because I saw pictures of these people and I described them as being in their mid-40s. Turns out they're just 29. They just look like they're in their mid-40s. It was the passion that gave... Okay, now they're going into the victims, and we don't need to do that. God love those victims. God love them. Jesus, please take these victims of this jam band atrocity into your ever-loving arms. Let's see. All right, moving on. Hey, this DC brothel story that we covered a couple of times last year is fascinating. It's back in. It's back in because the Department of Justice has just laid down a mollywop of a charge. So if you remember, they busted this brothel. There were two locations. One was just outside Washington, D.C., and the other was on like the campus of Harvard or something. At this, any rate, these brothels served very connected, very powerful people like lawyers and senators and, visiting international dignitaries to Washington, people attending, symposiums at Harvard and MIT, all day. It was a very high-end kind of clientele list. And they all got busted. The DC one got busted and the Boston one got busted. And is there another list of names that we're all waiting on? Bunch of people in Washington, D.C. who buys prostitutes regularly. That's what we're looking for now. That's what we're waiting on. But we're going to wait a long time on that because, that this is a fairly new story. But what happened today is that the Department of Justice is now saying that these brothels, this network of brothels, Washington, D.C. and Boston, they're not only connected through commerce, but they're connected through plan and plotting. That's right. They are believed now that both of these brothels may have been Chinese fronts, that the Chinese actually set these brothels up, and the Chinese were intentionally gathering compromise on a whole bunch of, that's the Russian term for, blackmailable material. The Chinese were gathering all this stuff on all of these high-end American officials and international travelers and all that stuff. So there we go. Let's see how far that angle takes the Department of Justice. Let's find out. Apparently, the madams at both of these places were South Korean women. And they believe that the South Korean, North Korean influence into China. Anyway, developing ... The DC brothel story just took on a whole new wrinkle. Not just American, let's make some money by selling prostitutes. No, this seems to have much more nefarious undertones and possible international espionage links. Let's see here. Scientology. Scientology is in the news today. Scientology is racketeering. Apparently, a judge has said that, you know what? No, we can bring a charge here on racketeering for Scientology because, and this all stems from Danny Masterson. Danny Masterson was the That 70s Show rapist. Let's just call him what he is, he's a convicted rapist. Danny Masterson, the convicted rapist, was on trial for like the better part of, it seems like 2 years, but he was convicted and sent to jail, and he's not going to be in jail for like 30 years. Hide from That 70s Show. He's a rapist. He's in jail. Scientology circled the wagons on him. Scientology apparently engaged in, they're being accused of engaging in all forms of influence. And, racketeering stems from the RICO laws, which allowed the federal government to observe and, it's about conspiracy. Right? It was used against the mob. How do you connect all of these different individual mobsters to one another? Through RICO. It's wiretapping and it's racketeering. Are you racketeering? Are you racketeering? Bunch of guys getting together and going, how are we going to make some money off screwing people? Racketeering. So they're accusing Scientology of engaging in racketeering, and now apparently they are vulnerable to the RICO laws. Criminal enterprise. That's the quote. Criminal enterprise. Scientology Scientology could face RICO charges. Danny Masterson accusers say church seems to contradict itself in Leah Remini suit. All right, let's find out what this is about. The Church of Scientology could be labeled a criminal enterprise due to its pattern of racketeering activity, says the plaintiffs in the civil harassment case against David Miscavige. With 3 more rape claims against the incarcerated That 70s Show star, Danny Masterson, in a proposed Second Amendment complaint, the accusers want the LA courts to allow mafia-inspired RICO charges to be included in the case. At almost the same time, in another lawsuit, the church seems to have kneecapped its own argument that one of the main reasons it harshly criticizes Leah Remini is because the former Scientologist has long been inspiring violence against Scientology and its leadership. I don't get that. Anyway, we're moving on. I don't want to spend any more time than we have to on Scientology, but there's a story about Scientology now possibly being subject to RICO and racketeering charges for acting as a criminal organization. Any organization that does a crime is then a criminal organization if they can prove some form of conspiracy and it wasn't just an individual acting alone. David Miscavige, I'll take either one here. I'll take Scientology being labeled a criminal organization or David Miscavige being taken down individually. Whatever, any port in a storm. Speaking of lists, how about the Epstein list, huh? Can we talk about the Epstein list? This is getting me upset, okay? So I love the social media. I love to look at all the monkeys throw poop at each other all day long because that's basically what it is these days. I rarely get involved anymore. I used to, but then I realized, you know what? This is just making me not a good person. I am just always ratcheted up and it's making me hate people. So I don't really participate. However, last night I saw some things. And I'll tell you, it's become clear to me that when you don't understand much of anything, complicated, legal things, how issues or cases matriculate through our judicial system, when you don't understand any of that, and why should you, unless you're a lawyer or you've been, dragged through court, I don't know. When you don't understand anything about that stuff, everything can become a conspiracy, right? Everything. Like when you don't understand that, that's not how it works. It takes 7 days for that. Not conspiracy. What are they hiding? So last night this happened. This happened because a lot of you, I saw friends of mine sharing this stuff and being like, I'm outraged. You got all triggered. You got all triggered by people who were purposefully manipulating you. You guys, unless something's happened in the last hour, I sit here at 1:09 p.m. Central Standard Time on January the 3rd, year of our Lord 2024. And I am telling you, the Epstein list has not been released. Okay? It hasn't. I know some of you are sharing lists by people who have accounts that look like real news, but they are not. And of course, these lists have every Hollywood celebrity on it and all of the people that you want to be on the list. There is no list. There is no list. Also, Doe 109, what is it? Hold on. Let me click on this story. Because there's another thing that's going on. So there's a whole other bunch of people that got you all riled up because the list isn't going to be released until January 22nd. Remember that? Last night, a whole bunch of you, oh my God, who is, wait, what is it? I got to get the number right, because one thing I know about the crazy right is they are very specific about their misinformation. Doe, where is it? Let me find this. Doe 107. Okay. So yesterday, Doe 107 was trending, and people were saying, Doe 107 is somebody incredibly, but Hillary Clinton, and they were going like, Condoleezza Rice. Well, actually, that wouldn't be who they'd want. They would say Susan Rice. Yeah, Susan Rice. Anyway, Michelle Obama, whatever. Doe 107. And then the story became Doe 107 has won a court case to stop the release of the names till at least January 22nd. And oh my God, you guys went nuts. You guys were like, what? Because half of you were like, look at the list, it's already out. And then the other half of you were like, what do you mean it's not coming out till January 22nd? Again, I say when you don't understand anything, everything is a conspiracy. Doe 107 was everybody from Angelina Jolie to Ellen DeGeneres to Michelle Obama last night. Doe 107. The reason that we should all be upset that the list won't be released until January 22nd is Doe 107, who people, snoops online, that's Hillary Clinton. So that's all the misinformation that was going out there. All right, so let me tell you what's happening here. The list can be released at any moment. The January 22nd deadline is true. That's when the name of Doe 107 can be released. This list that they've been dangling in front of us does not include Doe 107, because on December the 18th, Doe 107 went to court and said, we don't want to be on that list. And the judge said, okay, we're going to pull you off the list and we're going to revisit this on January the 22nd. But the rest of the list, the thing that we've all been frothing about, and again, I tell you, this list isn't a list of people who molested children with Jeffrey Epstein. Some might. There's probably a Venn diagram that'll have overlap. But what this list is a list of names that were mentioned in the discovery of the Virginia Joffrey Prince Andrew case in Minnesota. These are all likely to be, some will be eyebrow raising, but these are all, and for the most part, likely to be assistants, people who worked in Epstein's business, secretaries who took logs. There is overlap. Yes, he's an apex child rapist. Absolutely. But he was also, he didn't do that 24 hours a day. He was also doing regular business. So these names are not people who are being implicated as sex conspirators. They're not. Some might be. Again, as more information comes out, we will have a Venn diagram and we'll be able to go, So the case of Doe 107. Why is Doe 107 being given special treatment by the judge in this case? And why has the identity of Doe 107, the delay, been granted by the judge? Well, everybody online is like, see, Michelle Obama got to him. See, Hillary Clinton got to him. There was one guy that even was pushing that it was Angelina Jolie, and that Angelina Jolie had all of this information, and there was this video. that was going around of like 23. Like, here's how the video is presented. This is a 23-year-old Angelina Jolie speaking privately about how she was indoctrinated into the Illuminati. It was a clip from a student film that she had made like in 1989. But because it looked like realism, people were like, oh, yeah, I've never seen that movie. That must be her in real life talking about the Illuminati. So people just take a deep breath. The list has not been released. I'll do a special stream when it does. Woo! We'll get into that. And don't spin yourself out thinking that the list can't be released till the January 22nd because of Hillary Clinton or whatever. Stop it. That's one person. That's Doe 107, who on the 18th of December in a court hearing was allowed to pull herself away from the rest of the names. Why? Because she's a victim. Because she's a grown woman who was named as one of the girls that Jeffrey Epstein sex trafficked. And she's now moved on with her life, and she lives in another country, and she doesn't want her name tracked. She doesn't want, and so that's what's going on here. That's what's going on. That's what this is. It's not Angelina Jolie. It's not, all the names are not being held back because Michelle Obama demanded it. When you don't understand anything, everything is a conspiracy. This is all going according to plan. Now, we were promised by a court that they could be released as early as yesterday. It was never promised that they would be released yesterday. According to the timing of when it becomes available to be released, because the clock ticking and the calendar flipping, on January 2nd, wasn't it? January 2nd, 2024, these names were available to be released. Now, they haven't been released yet. It didn't mean that they were going to instantly be released. I'm hoping that they are. All of us normal people are hoping that we are, because we want to see some of these people and we want to continue to put the puzzle together. But these names are not going to, these names are not an indictment list, okay? It's not. And there's going to be a lot of people whose names are going to appeal on there because Jeffrey Epstein gave a lot of money to charity, and a lot of celebrities run charities. And so you got to go to the guy that's going to cut the $500,000 check, and you got to have a meeting with him. And you know what? That meeting is going to be written down by an outside executive assistant, and it's going to appear in business logs. And God forbid if the next person that came into that office was up to something scuzzy, and then that person gets under the microscope in court, and then they say, well, give us discovery on everybody they met. And then suddenly the unrelated meeting that occurred before the sketchy meeting is now in court documents, is somehow being tangentially associated with it, when it's not. So let's all take a deep breath and be freaking normal about this. We all want this list. Please, I think I've been pretty clear about my feelings about Jeffrey Epstein. I believe that he was murdered. I believe there was reason to murder him. And I believe that there are going to be names, should we ever see an actual list of people who engaged in child sex rape with this guy. I want to see that list. I'm with you. But man, we just got to be, don't be stupid about it. Don't embarrass yourself. Don't be, this is Angelina Jolie talking about how, really? Because I would think that would have been on 60 Minutes. If that was real and it's so readily available. And by the way, after you break this story on social media and everybody sees it, why hasn't anyone else picked it up? Oh, that's because of, the lizard people controlling everything. You think TMZ would pick that story up in a heartbeat if someone at TMZ didn't look at it and go, yeah, that's the student film she did in '88. But people on the internet, they just see the one guy who's got the thing that looks like he's a news source, and then they start sharing it. And there are thousands. The Angelina Jolie one had thousands of people in the comment section saying things like, I knew she was a lizard person. This is stunning. We need to get the military involved. Oh my God, it's embarrassing. It's embarrassing. We can all want justice. We can all want answers for the whole Epstein thing without being complete idiots about it. All right, so there you have it. Did the list come out yet? I really hope it does. I really hope it comes out today. I want to go through the list and we'll break it down. and then we can play because we are very, very dishonorable in this regard. We can play the game. Do we think they have something to do with it or not? When the list comes out, that's the game. I'll do a live stream when the list comes out. And we'll just go through the names on the list, and then we'll wax poetic over whether or not we think they're into kids or not. Oh my God, that is a gross idea for a podcast or a stream. Strike that. What if I didn't say it that way? Like, because it's not kind of interesting content, I think. I just won't say it that way. All right, moving on. Largest charitable donations list. Here, I talked about this. Here's a whole bunch of super rich guys and their charitable donations and what they donated to. Now, all these guys, they were to be pulled into court. Their secretary would have to turn over office logs. And you might get Matthew McConaughey going to see Warren Buffett. And then after that, there might be some Russian spy. Does that mean Matthew McConaughey is a Russian spy? No, it just means that scheduling had his meeting with Warren Buffett to sing. It just bothers me. People have a bunch of things going on. All right, let's look at this. So these are the billionaires who gave the most money in 2023. And what a surprise, it's Warren Buffett at the top of the list. He's an old man. His kid's kind of a disappointment. Let's not kid ourselves. I know that him and Stevie Buffett, I know that he puts his arm around him and goes on 60 Minutes and stuff. But kind of a disappointment, I think. Stevie's kind of a rich kid who grew up with, Warren Buffett as his dad. Actually, wait a second. Hold on. I take that back. I am starting to now think about Warren Buffett's kid and how I know a little something about Warren Buffett's kid. Like the fact that Warren Buffett's kid didn't grow up a rich kid. Warren Buffett had a big pile of money in the bank, but they lived in like a regular ranch house with a 2-car garage, even though he was worth billions. Warren Buffett. All right, never mind. Warren Buffett's a good dude. I'm not going to slander his family. I think, right? You know how I feel about billionaires. There are no good dudes who are billionaires. He might be the exception. And also, much love to Warren Buffett. He seems to have really built it on his own, right? Like years and years of just smart, consistent investment strategy has led him to be, I don't know, it depends on what month we're doing the list, but he's always like the richest, the second richest, the third richest. He's in there somewhere. He's a top 5. He's a perennial top 5 richest guy in the world for like the last billion years. The richest Americans collectively gave a total of $3.5 billion in 2023. They gave it mostly to universities, scientific research institutes, a healthcare system, a family foundation, and a racial justice group. This according to the Chronicle of Oh my God. I can't say philanderer or philanthropy, except I just did. Warren Buffett, the investment guru with an estimated net worth of $119 billion. He was worth in the year 2000. I looked this up earlier today. In the year 2000, 24 years ago, Warren Buffett was the second wealthiest man in the world. 20 years ago, Warren Buffett was the second wealthiest man in the world. First was Bill Gates, 20 years ago. Warren Buffett, 20 years ago, second wealthiest man in the world. He was worth $60 billion 20 years ago. So in the past 24 years, he's now up to $119 billion. He's doubled in 20 years. He's doubled. Now I know that you adjust that for inflation. So I did. I did the net worth calculator. His 2000 money would have been worth approximately like 90 billion, 98 billion, something like that. Just really close to, we'll call it 100 billion, but it was just under 100 billion. So, just if he sat on that money and did nothing with it, it would have been worth $100 billion. He's worth $119 billion. That's an extra $20 billion. Now, is that due to Warren Buffett being just better than everybody else? Or is that just another indication of how we have supercharged the wealth class in this country? That over the past 20 years, man, the rich people have gone from having 1 yacht to having 5 yachts. Warren Buffett, the investment guru with an estimated net worth of $119 billion, topped the list by donating $541.5 million. He donated this to the Susan Thompson Buffett Foundation in honor of his late wife. Okay, look at that. So his late wife had this big, Wife's dead. So his wife dies. They start this big foundation in her name, and he stakes it with $541.5 million. All right, that's good. His gift heads a list of the largest donations from individuals or their foundations. Let's see here. Of all the billionaires who the combined net worth of billionaires who donated in the top 5 list, $305 billion. So the combined net worth of the top 5 billionaires who made the top 5 list of guys who donated the most money to charity, their combined net worth is $305 billion. And how much did they spend total? Because now I'm like, well, all right, they could have done more. $3.5 billion. So $3.5 billion. So out of a total of $305.1 billion, let's put it this way. Out of $300, they gave $3. They gave $3 away. All right, never mind. I don't want to do math either. The second largest donation came from the mathematician and hedge fund founder, James Simons, and his wife, Marilyn, who gave $500 million to the endowment of the State University of New York at Stony Brook. The 1803 fund got $400 million boost from Nike co-founder Phil Knight and his wife, Penny. $400 million from Nike to the 1803 fund. I don't know what that is. The fund is working to revive Albina, a Portland, Oregon black neighborhood that was ravaged in the 1970s. Ravaged by what? Economic depression? It's Portland, Oregon. Bigfoots? What was it ravaged by? I don't know. Also giving $400 million was Ross Brown, who pledged the money to launch the Brown Institute for Basic Sciences at the California Institute of Technology. Brown is founder of the industrial equipment manufacturer Cryogenic Industries. Other top donations included $375 million given by Daniel and Jennifer Gilbert through their Gilbert Family Foundation. They gave this to the Henry Ford Health Center, which will use it to build 2 medical centers. $300 million came from Ken Griffin, the billionaire who's in charge of Citadel Hedge Fund. Ken Griffin gave his money to Harvard University for financial aid and other programs. Very good. Billionaire giving $300 million to Harvard University so that smart poor kids can go. I applaud that. Why is it just got to be Harvard, though? Why can't we? Why that $300 billion just for? Okay, because elitists are going to elite. $210 million was given by Leukocyte Pharmaceuticals founder Timothy Springer. I don't know what Leukocyte Pharmaceuticals is. Timothy Springer, he gave that to the Institute for Protein Innovation. And $200 million was given by scientist and Qualcomm founder Franklin Antonio to the SETI Institute. Ooh, I like that one. How much money did SETI get and who did this? Okay. SETI got $200 million from Qualcomm founder. I know what Qualcomm is. SETI got $200 million from Qualcomm founder Franklin Antonio. What is SETI? SETI are those big, giant listening devices that we're using to try and contact aliens. Yeah, I love SETI. If you ever saw Contact, the Jodie Foster movie with Matthew McConaughey, like in the beginning, she's like laying on this giant radar dish in the middle of this giant radar field. That's SETI. SETI's cool. Let's get SETI some money. Let's find aliens, man. Let's do that. Let's find some aliens so that we humans can all come together and hate something together. Wouldn't that be nice? Wouldn't that be nice? The minute we find another race of people, suddenly it's going to be like, well, at least you ain't one of them green scales. I don't even know what we would call them because I can't imagine what they would be. But at least you ain't one of them. You know what I mean? It'll be good. It'll be good. So let's find alien life and let's bring humanity together in fear and hatred of something that we don't understand. Because that's kind of what we do as humans. We're good at that. We are so good at being scared in a group. And then creating like nonsense to justify the fear. Why? Because within that group, there will always be somebody who recognizes the fear and that recognizes that, well, if I can be the one that they think can get us through this scary thing, that I can be in charge. And that's how Hitler came to power. I don't know. This is a stream of consciousness. I told you guys that when we started here. Sometimes I say things that don't make any sense. Sometimes I have an interesting thought and I start to follow that and it leads me nowhere and then I got nowhere to go. That was an example of that. Paula Abdul is trending. Paula Abdul. Straight up now, tell me, do you really want to love me forever? Ow, ow, ow. Paula Abdul. She had like one album. She had one album. She had like 3 hits. They were shoved down our throat in the summer of 1990 or whenever the hell it was. She was hot. She was tiny. She had our attention. And then nothing else, right? Maybe a later career duet with MC Scat Cat, or was that from the original? Maybe that was from the original run of like 3 hits. Straight Up's kind of a banger. I Straight Up is still a banger. Straight up now, tell me, do you really want to love me forever? What? Kind of okay. If I'm out in a club, right, we're having fun and Straight Up comes on, I'm gonna be like, all right, we're all gonna laugh because it's kind of corny, but we'll be okay with it. Paula Abdul then went on to become the one of the original hosts of the national phenomena American Idol, so that made her famous again. She ain't been famous in a while, though. I think now she's just in that cycle of hosting these talent contests, right? Didn't she like jump from American Idol to America's Got Talent or whatever, So You Think You Can Dance? That seems like one that she should have been involved in because she's a choreographer and a dancer. I don't know. Maybe she was. I don't know. But now she's famous again. Why? Because after like 20 years, she's claiming that she was sexually harassed on the set of American Idol by a guy who I totally believe sexually harassed her. Absolutely, 100%. I mean, this is just, look, you know me, I'm always a little sketch when it comes to like people going, 20 years ago, I was traumatized. I haven't had a good night's sleep since. I don't like that. I don't like the 20 years ago. I like to come forward. Now is the time to come forward when it happens. Hopefully there's a generation of women who will embrace this. And hopefully we have as a society is more understanding of these things and, won't allow them to feel any shame or anything like that. That's what we got to work towards. But you got to come forward in the moment. She's coming forward years later. And it's always very troubling. Except in this case, I'm like, yeah, I think this guy totally did it. This guy has always been a super perv, a super weird creeper guy. I'm talking about Nigel Lithgow. Nigel Lithgow is the creator of American Idol. No, it's not Simon Cowell, or is it Simon? It's Simon had something to do with it, but this is the dude. This is the English dude, the executive. You always saw him in the background because as American Idol became super famous, he got upset that he wasn't known as the American Idol guy, as the true boss behind American Idol. So he started trying to shoehorn his way into cast pictures. Like it'd be Randy and Simon and Paula and then Ryan. And then in the background, like leaning in, you'd see like this guy, this old decrepit. He looks like someone's grandma, but he's a dude. It's like one of those weird British kind of, I'm trying too hard to stay young and attractive. And that makes him look like, Helen Mirren or something. I don't know. Anyway, here's the story. Paula Abdul has accused former American Idol producer Nigel Lithgow of sexually assaulting her in the early 2000s when she was a judge on the reality competition show. The lawsuit filed Friday in Los Angeles also accuses Lithgow of sexually assaulting Abdul after she left American Idol and became a judge on Lithgow's other competition show, So You Think You Can Dance. Look at that. She did. I didn't know that she hosted that. I just thought that was a different network. That seems obvious. As a matter of fact, one might say that if Nigel Lithgow was totally hot for Paula Abdul and wanted to get her alone, he might develop a show called So You Think You Can Dance as a vehicle for her, just to get some alone time. The lawsuit filed Friday in Los Angeles also accuses Lithgow of sexually assaulting Abdul after she left for So You Think You Can Dance. The Associated Press generally does not identify alleged victims of sexual assault unless they come forward publicly, as Abdul has done. Oh, you better damn well get her name right. She's come out specifically 24 years later because, maybe in 2024 she's feeling like her PR is an expense that she doesn't need to pay monthly, and she needs just a little something to get the year started. She needs a little attention. So she's going to do this. So now we're going to all talk about this. Now, again, let me go back. Do I believe it's true? Yeah, absolutely, I do. In a statement, I think he's totally like that. He's always seemed like a. In a statement, Abdul's lawyer, Douglas Johnson, applauded the singer and dancer for speaking out publicly. It was clearly a difficult decision to make, but Mrs. Abdul, or Miss Abdul, I don't think she's married. She can't stay in a relationship, right? Who was she with? Wasn't she with somebody? Like not before American Idol, like when she was still Paula Abdul, she was with somebody. Who was Paul? Was it Emilio Estevez? Did Emilio Estevez go from like Julia Roberts? No, did Emilio Estevez go from Demi Moore to Paul Abdul? He might have. That's pretty good. But, yeah. I don't know how he dealt with her. I mean, she's crazy. I don't know how. Well, he grew up with Charlie Sheen. That's how. Emilio Estevez would have been perfect for Paul Abdul. He grew up with Charlie Sheen. He knows crazy. He knows how to handle crazy. In a statement Saturday, Abdul's lawyer, Douglas Johnson, applauded the singer and dancer for publicly speaking out. It was clearly a difficult decision to make, but Miss Abdul knows that she stands both in the shoes and on the shoulders of many other similarly situated survivors, and she's determined to see that justice is done. Where's she been for 24 years? She's determined to see it now? Why? What triggered it? Why now? I mean, look. Oh, God. Write a book, Paula. It's 24 years. Yeah. Lithgow said in a statement that he was shocked and saddened to hear of the allegations made by Abdul, who he said he considered a dear and entirely platonic friend. While Paula's history of erratic behavior is well known, see, this is what I didn't want to say. So I'm glad that they're writing about it, because now I can respond without being the guy who goes, he's blaming the victim for being nuts. Well, she's nuts. We've known she's been nuts for years, man. I got stories. I have a number of friends, Nikki McKibben, God love her soul. I have a number of friends who matriculated through the early editions of American Idol. I know a number of people who are on that show and who did well. The ones from the Dallas area, of course, Kristen Holt and Nikki McKibben. My point is this. They all have stories. I've been drunk with these girls. They've told me stories. I said, so what was it like? What was Paula really like? I think it was Nikki McKibben who lived with Paula Abdul. She's like, Nikki's dead. Nikki died. Nikki was wonderful. Nikki was troubled. Nikki had problems. But man, what a fun chick she was. Anyway, Nikki McKibben, God rest her. Nikki lived with Paula Abdul. And she had stories about Paula Abdul, the famous locking in the closet story that we told on the old Pugs and Kelly show that got us in trouble. I don't know. But apparently, yeah, Paula Abdul. Like, well documented. While Paula's history of erratic behavior is well known, I can't pretend to understand exactly why she would file a lawsuit that she must know is untrue, Lithgow said in the statement. But I can promise that I will fight this appalling smear with everything that I have. See, it's so complicated for me because I totally think that he's the kind of dude that would use his position to try and get into the sack with Paula Abdul. And why would he do that? Because Paula Abdul is hot and he is a man with power over her. And it was like 1999, 2000. And that's what men did. We have covered this. We can't be shocked by that. We know that this was a wrong that was committed for decades, generationally, to young female actresses. And we've had a moment in recent years, and we are aware of it, and we are keeping an eye on it. And God damn the next man that tries something like that, because you step forward immediately. You walk out of that casting couch, and you say, that man asked me, and then you go right to the authorities, and that's how we do it now. So I believe he did it back then. I also believe she's crazy, which hurts the fact that she's coming forward 24 years later. We're like, oh man, this sketchy, nutty chick. I mean, could it be worse? Could this, I don't know if it's worse. Maybe it's the same thing. All right, forget I said that. Let's back it up. So maybe because so another thing about her is that she liked, Paula was never, okay, we'll say it this way. Paula Abdul was almost always never, no, don't want to say it that way. Paula Abdul is the kind of person who others, when they meet her, always assume she was fucked up. I'm just going to put it that way. That's not to say that she was fucked up. I'm just saying anybody who met Paula Abdul at any time, anywhere, from about 1999 till, I don't know, when she finally fell off the American Idol, anybody who met her anywhere, they would go, yeah, I met Paula Abdul. She seemed fucked up. That's all I'm saying. I don't know if she was, but there have been stories. So I could see how, like effed up Paula Abdul, all sloppy, and then you got gross 65-year-old British creepy guy who looks like, some Dracula character. Seriously, look this guy up, Nigel Lithgow. He's gross. Like, I could see him totally trying to take advantage of that, because why not? It's Hollywood, and she's, he's an executive producer, and this is how things are done. I don't know. I just don't like the fact that it's 24 years later. It's like, not now that it's like she didn't come forward in the past, because although it was a traumatic experience and it was a horrible thing, she liked the money and he was giving her work and she didn't want to upset that apple cart. But now, 24 years later, she's not working for him anymore. She doesn't have anything going on. And now she's going to bring this up. I don't know. It makes me feel just the slightest bit icky about the whole thing. Like that maybe she was in some way complicit with this whole thing by going along with it, by not wanting to rock the boat. I get that. I mean, I totally get that's a complicated thing. I totally get it. Yeah. I just don't know. I mean, if that's it, if that was your dilemma, if you went through with it, and if her thing is that like all these years later, I just can't live with it anymore, I've got to get it out. Well, you lived with it by your own choice. It festered by your own choice. It festered because you didn't go to the police immediately. You didn't make a stink immediately, and you just decided to keep working for this man and his production company for the next 10 years. You made that decision, a difficult one, because I believe, if you're telling me now, you were traumatized. And yet you were traumatized, but you still liked the employment benefits of, so you made a decision. You made a difficult human decision where you went, I'm not going to say anything now because this could make me lose my deal and my contract's coming up. But now, all these years later, if you're talking about how it's traumatized you, I can say you've got yourself to blame partially because you're the one who let it fester. You never let it get it. You never get it out. You could have had justice 20 years ago. I know, different time. And it's easy. It's so easy, fat middle-aged white man streaming in the middle of the day. It's so easy for me to sit here and act like, well, here's what I would have done. I don't know. I don't know what I would have done. But there are a lot of moving parts to this. And I believe it happened. And I think Paula Abdul is probably also complicit. All right, I don't know. Not in complicit in the fact that I'm upset that it's taken 24 years. There you go. Not complicit in her own sexual assault, if that happened. And again, I believe it did, because I'm just looking at these two people. And have I told you two things I'm really good at? Miniature golf and sizing people up. And when I look at Nigel Lithgow, I go, that dude would totally use a casting couch. How about this one? How about youngsters? Are you mad at youngsters yet? I try not to get mad at youngsters, because as a guy who's my age, I understand that we have just handed the baton off to the next generation, and they're gonna make all kinds of decisions, and that's fine. We were there. We had our run, Gen X, although a very small one. So I try not to get angry at youngsters, because that just means I'm old. But I'm angry at youngsters about this one. Have you heard about this new trend? Young people are reclaiming their virginity. They think they can just reclaim their virginity when a new year comes. It's called wiping the body count slate clean. That's what they're calling it. It's 2024. I've wiped this. So people are actually going around pretending like they're virgins. See, it's just these little things. We need to be able to get over these little things. But when the little things have like a million little thing friends, which is the little thing that makes me go Michael Douglas and falling down, right? What little thing is going to make me go, what? I'm a virgin. You've had 3 abortions. What do you mean you're a virgin? I've decided that I'm a virgin now. Okay. All right. Is that what's happening? Very good. All right, let's go. How about some new laws? Let's run down some new laws that are taking effect in 2024 There was more to that virgin story, but what else? All you need to know is that young people are now pretending like they can just reclaim their virginity, and I don't think that that's right. All right, some new laws that are taking effect in this new year. DEI ban. What is that? What is a DEI ban? All right, so this is for Texas public colleges must comply with a newly signed state law banning. All right, so there's a new law in Texas that bans on college campuses diversity, equity, and inclusion offices. Oh my God. Hold on. Texas public colleges must, I'm sorry, I was getting text messages. Texas public colleges must comply with a newly signed state law banning diversity, equity, and inclusion. The move comes as Republican-driven backlash over DEI. Okay, whatever. That seems terrible. How about this one out of California? Here's a new law in the state of California, gender-neutral toy aisles. California will officially mandate gender-neutral toy aisles for large retailers. The blue state becomes the first in the nation in 2021 to adopt such a law. The law states that retail stores with 500 or more workers must sell toys and childcare products, excluding clothes, in a gender-neutral section that's labeled at the discretion of the retailer. Uh-oh. Labeled at the discretion of the retailer. Well, if this was a mom and pop thing, that might be problematic. But since this seems to be only applying to giant retailers with 500 or more workers, I'm sure there's going to be some corporate whiz kid who finds exactly the proper and least offensive way to phrase this. That's so stupid. Are you kidding me? Gender neutral toys. This is dumb. This is so stupid. They have to have their own aisle. Why? So the bullies will know where all those kids are hanging out at the toy store. Why do they have to? Why are we? No, it's not about singling them out. It's about making them feel special. No, it's about singling them out. It's about other people seeing that they're getting something special and then hating on them for it. This is just the kind. If we would just allow them to just do their thing and stop making all of these laws and rules that trigger some people, not me, but you can understand how, again, I go back to the Michael Douglas character in Falling Down. You know, what is the thing? Oh, Jesus, really? They got a whole aisle here for. It shouldn't bother you, but it does. It bothers people. It seems like a ridiculous law. Being against this law, pointing out that California, this is an absurd law that toy stores now have to have a gender neutral section. I mean, forced by the government. The government is saying to these companies that you have to do this with your business, which just seems like an overstep. If the business wants to do it, that's fine. If there is enough of a public demand for gender neutral stuff, and I don't think there is, I think there's a very powerful lobby that got together and said, you should do this, but just treat people the same. Just treat people with respect and dignity and let them do their thing instead of making them somehow special and different with their own aisle. I understand that the people behind this bill were probably very well-intentioned. I just don't see that. I just don't see the end result being a good thing. I get the intent. You know, some of the most idiotic things are well-intended. Wider access to birth control. Here's another one. HRA Pharma's O-Pill will become available at drugstores, drugstores and convenience stores after the Food and Drug Administration last year approved it. The increased availability, which is expected to... Okay, so this is just over-the-counter birth control. You don't have to have a prescription anymore, so I guess that's at the federal level. Illinois, my state. I'd like to thank my state for doing this because I'm against censorship in all forms. Are you? I may not go so far as to carry a little pocket version of the United States Constitution, but I certainly do consider myself a free speech advocate, and I certainly don't like censorship of any kind. So let me throw a big thank you to the good folks in my state, Illinois, my home state, where I was reared. I now choose to live in the great state of Texas, but Illinois is where I'm from, and they have passed a law that went into effect yesterday. Illinois becomes the first state to pass a law penalizing libraries that ban books. That's all I can say. No book bans. No book bans. And if your community library gets together and decides to ban books from the publicly funded library in the state of Illinois will no longer publicly fund your library. Every child in the state of Illinois has to have access to a library system, just like we always did. I don't know who's still going to the libraries. I mean, do we check out books or do we read everything on Kindle? I don't know how that works. But man, any sort of pen to paper that says you can't ban anything. You can't ban this shit. You banning books? What's wrong with you people? That years ago, the idea of banning books was like something that we couldn't even imagine here in this country. Now you got people banning books. Look, if you got a book in the library called, Tommy Has Two Mommies or something, and you got a big problem with that, don't check that book out. That book isn't being forced. It's not preferred, right? It's not on a curriculum or a reading list for your 8-year-old. What the fudge do you care? There are thousands of books in the library. You're going out of your way to find one that might appeal to somebody who you have nothing in common with, who you don't even know. Let them check that book out if they want. But you saying they can't check out what they want because I don't like the things that they want, you're a son of a bitch. You need to mind your own damn business. Anyway, so thank you, Illinois, for becoming the first state in America that says you can't ban books from libraries, you idiots. I mean, unless, in Illinois, if it's like a book that praises the Green Bay Packers or something like that, I can see them changing. Stricter gun legislation in Michigan. The Democratic-led Senate approved a package last year to increase regulations on gun ownership for residents in an effort to reduce gun violence. This is in response to the Oxford school shooting. Remember that from a couple years ago? Well, and in the days following that, the Michigan legislature took advantage of public sentiment because, Hannity and Tucker and all those people hadn't gotten involved yet and changed it. But in the very early days of that, everyone in Michigan, including, it was a bipartisan effort. It was led by the Democrats, but the Republicans in the state of Michigan as well. They were like, yeah, okay, let's just get a little bit smarter about our gun laws here. And they voted for it. Took effect today. Took effect this year. They voted for it. They voted for it because it was smart. Because they were attending the funerals of dead children. If that's the backdrop that is required for people to go, can we just protect people? Can we just be smart about this? Can we just agree that crazy people shouldn't get guns, or that maybe, just maybe, you have to fill out a piece of paper? Michigan had like crazy easy gun laws because it's a big hunting state, and everybody I know in Michigan has guns. I know a lot of people from Michigan have. Well, I'm separate. Where I've come from, we're separated by a lake. So yeah, I know a lot of people on the other side of the lake. Michigan's a wonderful state. It's a very rural state. People don't think that because they think of Detroit and all that. But no. Western Michigan along Lake Michigan, that's Wisconsin, Minnesota. That's big hunting time. It's a lot of rural. But even they got together and they were like, you know what? Dead kids. That's a game changer. Thank you, Michigan. Being smarter about it. Ain't nobody trying to take your guns. We're just trying to be smart about it. Actually, we are trying to take your guns if you're a fucking loser, if you're a crazy person, if you're like, hey, yeah, we should be trying to take your guns. But not, look, hey, I put it this way, our executive producers of today's show. Adam wants to have a gun, Adam should have a gun, Byron should have a gun, whatever, I don't care. Although, if I'm being honest, neither of those two should have guns because they trigger each other so easily. And yet they've come together today as executive producers of this show. Today's show, executive produced by Adam and Byron. All right, let's see here. What else do we have? Reclaiming your virginity. Yeah, you know what? I think that's about it. Guys, I think that's done. Yeah, we're done. That's going to be it. I am so sorry. I know. There's a couple other things here, but I don't need to get into it. I got my kid in the other room. We're going to go do some things. All right, I appreciate you hanging out for this hour and 45 minutes stream. Yeah, basically almost hour and 40-minute stream. We do this every day, Monday through Friday, right here at radiomisfits.com. You can directly link to us by just going to pugscast.com. There you can find all the other shows that we've done for these past 2.5 years. Say it one more time. We need your tips. So if you want the show to continue into January, unobstructed with regularity. Drop whatever you can. We were at 2:45 when we started today's show. Thank you to Byron and Adam for being the guys who tipped yesterday. Don't know if anybody's going to do it today, but we are going to whittle this down. We're going to get as close to the number that we need to get to as we can by Friday afternoon after the show. We'll see you tomorrow. We'll see you tomorrow unless that damn Epstein list comes out. Look at that. If that Epstein list comes out, I'm going to do a special. We'll do a special and we'll go through the names. Although it might take a while because I might not, you know what I mean? We're going to have to research who these names are. Like a lot of these names are going to be like, oh, this guy ran Kodak for 3 years back in the, I don't know. That's what I'm waiting on. I'm waiting on the list. How about you? All right. Love you guys. We'll see you tomorrow. You're the best. Bye, folks.